session? Okay. So are you going to give me them 2 books? Because you gave me 1 and 8 last time, right?
Yeah.
So if you can give me 2, so that until Sunday I can bring all 10 back.
Okay.
That's cool. Okay. I'm covering the books. That's how you do. Oh, you're reading it in depth. Just come in and just so they last. Try and do some.
Where do you get your coverage?
I just ordered it on Amazon. Cut them. So I spent some time on it.
Is it the peel off?
Yes.
I used to do that.
I did the books.
I have a lot of my bottles.
Hello. Actually, no. Was there one time in version is closed for a day?
It's 8:15.
Okay. The one you had.
8:15 will be
Gita and Arti. Okay. You want to sit for a little bit?
and he's not going to be able to stay for class.
I know, yeah.
Luca, you want to sit or?
We are down.
You know, it's the summertime. I have a little house next door that we want to sit comfortably.
Yeah, I can actually
Yeah,
take
but
that.
That's
That's
fine.
true.
Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopi Janam Vallabha Girivardhan Hari Gopi Janam Vallabha and Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhan Hari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari and Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Mr. Pad, Paramadhansa Paradikacharya, Astotra, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BPT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahamsa Paradikacharya, Astotra, the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, somehow the door is open back there. I thought it was closed, but I think it's open. Can you check, make sure it's closed, the door between here and the Pujari department? And also close the door to the kitchen too. Hare Krishna. Sorry about this technical delay. On this 8th day of November 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are still in chapter 9 entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, and we are on text number 11, page 389. Avajananti mamudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhavma jananto mama bhuta maheshwaram avajananti mamudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhavma jananto mama bhuta maheshwaram avajananti mamudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhavma jananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Parashakti. Avajananti mamudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhavma jananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Avajananti mamudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhavma jananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Not yet. Don't know that one yet. Page 389. Avajananti mamudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhavma jananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Avajananti, deride. Mam, me. Mudha, foolish men. Manushim, in a human form. Tanam, a body. Ashritam, assuming. Param, transcendental. Bhavam, nature. Ajananta, not knowing. Mama, my. Bhuta, of everything that be. Maha Ishwaram, the Supreme Proprietor. Translation: fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Purport: from the other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The Personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Ishwarak Parama Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many Ishwaras or controllers, and one appears greater than the other, or than another. In the ordinary management of affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, and above him a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in the material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller, Ishwarak Parama Krishna. and his body is Satchidananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called here Manushim because he is acting just like a man, a friend of Arjun's, a politician involved in the battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways he is acting just like an ordinary man, but actually his body is Satchidananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic language also. Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya. I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. This is Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1.1. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. Tamekam Govindam. You are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Satchid Ananda Vigraham. And your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternality. Gopal Tapani 138. Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of the Bhagavad Gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Sri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore he is called Mudha, for only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is the symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. Nor do they know that the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world is a manifestation of his internal energy. He is the master of the material energy. As has been explained in several places, Mama Maya Duratyaya. He claims that the material energy, although very powerful, is under his control, and whoever surrenders unto him can get out of the control of this material energy. If the soul surrendered to Krishna can get out of the influence of material energy, then how can the Supreme Lord, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the whole cosmic nature, have a material body like us? So this conception of Krishna is complete foolishness. Foolish persons, however, cannot conceive that the personality of Godhead, Krishna, appearing just like an ordinary man, can be the controller of all the atoms and of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The biggest and the minutest are beyond their conception, so they cannot imagine that a form like that of a human being can simultaneously control the infinite and the minute. Actually, although he is controlling the infinite and the finite, he is apart from all this manifestation. It is clearly stated concerning his Yogam Aishwaram, his inconceivable transcendental energy, that he can control the infinite and the finite simultaneously, and that he can remain aloof from them. Although the foolish cannot imagine how Krishna, who appears just like a human being, can control the infinite and the finite, those who are pure devotees accept this, for they know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore they completely surrender unto him and engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord. There are many controversies between the impersonalists and the personalists about the Lord's appearance as a human being. But if we consult the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative texts for understanding the science of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man, although he appeared on this earth as an ordinary human. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, when the sages headed by Shaunaka inquired about the activities of Krishna, they said, Kritavan kilakarmani saharamena keshabaha atimartyani bhagavan gudha kapata manushaha. Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like a human being, and so masked he performed many superhuman acts. Bhagavatam 1.120. The Lord's appearance as a man bewilders the foolish. No human being could perform the wonderful acts that Krishna performed while he was present on this earth. When Krishna appeared before his father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared with 4 hands, But after the prayers of the parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child. As stated in the Bhagavatam 10.346, Babhuva prakrita shishu. He became just like an ordinary child, an ordinary human being. Now here again it is indicated that the Lord's appearance as an ordinary human being is one of the features of his transcendental body. In the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, also, it is stated that Arjuna prayed to see Krishna's form of 4 hands, Tenaiva Rupena Chaturbhujena. After revealing this form, Krishna, when petitioned by Arjuna, again assumed his original human-like form, Manusham Rupam. These different features of the Supreme Lord are certainly not those of an ordinary human being. Some of those who deride Krishna and who are infected with the Mayavadi philosophy quote the following verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 3:29-21. Damodar, turn this up a little. I practically got that. Just a tiny bit. They quote this verse from Bhagavatam to prove that Krishna is just an ordinary man. Aham sarveshu bhuteshu bhutatma vasita sada. The Supreme is present in every living entity. We should better take note of this particular verse from the Vaishnava Acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instead of following the interpretation of unauthorized persons who deride Krishna. Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as the Paramatma, is situated in the moving and the non-moving entities as the Supersoul. So any neophyte devotee who simply gives his attention to the Archa Murti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities, is uselessly worshipping the form of the Lord in the temple. There are 3 kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is in the lowest stage. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as the Paramatma, every body is the embodiment of the temple of the Supreme Lord. So as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in which the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected. There are also many impersonalists who deride temple worship. They say that since God is everywhere, why should one restrict himself to temple worship? But if God is everywhere, is he not in the temple or in the deity? Although the personalist and the impersonalist will fight with one another perpetually, a perfect devotee in Krishna consciousness knows that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality, he is all-pervading, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Although his personal abode is Goloka Vrindavan and he is always staying there, by his different manifestations of energy and by his plenary expansion, he is present everywhere in all parts of the material and spiritual creation. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Just trying to preserve this voice into my 8th decade. And every day, you don't know, the kirtans, the classes, the kirtans, it's going to wear out. So a little more Damodar, so I can just speak in a normal voice and not whatever. A little more. Hare Krishna. That's good. Thank you very much. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Krishna is giving his verdict on those who deride him when he appears in the human form. Now, we learned in chapter 4 that he does that periodically, comes in his original human-like form every so often in order to protect the devotees, to reestablish Dharma, and to annihilate the miscreants. Now, when he comes as himself, he also has the mission, if you will, of refreshing the memory of his most attractive pastimes, human form. That's his original form. That's as Brahma says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. He has this form as Krishna, as we know him, with two hands and a flute, but is Satchidananda Vigraha. It is a form composed entirely of eternal existence, knowledge, and bliss, unlike our form, as Prabhupada points out, temporary, full of ignorance and full of misery. So there's a great distinction there. So when he comes in this human-like form, he doesn't really come in that form in order to kill the demons with that form. It's described that the demons, even the ones he kills in Vrindavan, he kills with his Vishnu form. The Vishnu form within Krishna kills him. Because the two-handed form is really, his only business is to enjoy pastimes with his devotees. But still, it's the same Krishna, but in an expansion that kills. And so many other forms he comes in. He comes as the fish, he comes as the big boar, Lord Nrsingadev, and that's maybe a little easier to see. This is God, you know. But we know from the Acharyas that the original God, the original form of God, is Krishna. And these others derive from him. Foolish people think, oh, Narayan, he has 4 arms, Krishna only has 2, so Narayan must be the original and Krishna is the expansion. Doesn't make any sense. So they don't understand his supreme nature, and therefore they deride him. So the Prabhupada has this extensive purport, and the reason he does is because this is a very important point, and the Acharyas have given many comments. So first, the point Prabhupada makes is that we're all part of a hierarchy of controllers. Just like we, you know, even in a family, you have the father, the controller. You know, he's supposed to be the master. The kid is supposed to obey. You know, and then, but the kids are also in control of their little. I remember when I was a kid, we found, this was when I was in my demoniac phase, and I and my best friend, we found a spider web with a big fat spider in it, and it was at eye level. And so we spent that evening running around catching moths and throwing it into that web and watching that spider go into action, you know. He goes and he paralyzes and then he wraps it around, you know, for later consumption. Sometimes just drink a little bit of the blood. This was my... So we were taking the role of the controllers of these moths. You know, assuring ourselves a very dark future if we hadn't come to, you know, somehow get rid of some of that karma. But that's the way it is. And above, you know, the local inhabitants, you got the mayor, then you got the governor, then you got the president, and they pretend to be complete controllers, but they have power, some power for some time. So there's always a hierarchy of Ishwaras, and Ishwara means controller. And then you have the gods. You have Indra, who often thinks he's the supreme, right? He gets so much into his power, and he has to be brought. But he has more influence, but above him there's Brahma, you know, like that. So that's what the material world is that there's a big hierarchy. And the problem is that in our ignorance, we forget that hierarchy, and we want to be controllers, or we want to claim there's no supreme controller. This is what really this is all about. In the modern day, it's not so much that people think that Krishna is an ordinary man. They don't believe that he exists at all. They think he's just somebody's concoction and a myth. So you have to start really with the arguments, oftentimes, that there has to be a supreme intelligence. Everything can't have arrived just by chance. That's insane. That's fairly easy to prove just by logic. So and the necessity, not only the logical necessity, the mathematical necessity according to physics, but also our visceral, you know, need for some source of meaning and source of morality and ethics of what's right or wrong. Otherwise, you find yourself cast upon this void, and nothing has any meaning anymore. Morality is just a concoction that, you know, happened at a certain time so that people could get along together. You know, but really, it has no foundation. This is what the demons say. Right here, Krishna speaks in the 16th chapter. Asatyam apatishtam te jagadahu anishwaram aparaspada sambhutam kamanyakama hoitagam. There is no foundation of existence, no final truth, no apratishtam. There's no really foundation of being. They declare there's no Ishvara. There's no God in control. And how is everything going on? Just by chance. Everything has arisen by chance over a long period of time, and gradually we've all grown up. So where does that leave you? That leaves you as just this one lifetime, trying to grab as much meaning, as much pleasure as you can, warding off the dangers, isn't it? So that's a supremely unsatisfying vision for existence. And that's why I remember, I grew up in the 60s, so in the 50s, you grew up, this existential philosophy came about because the war was World War II was a hugely destructive thing. In Europe, there's a reason why atheism is more prominent in Europe historically than in the United States. Because of World War II. Is that how can there be a God allowing all of this destruction, innocent people dying, horrible. Those kind of, So, most people, they think of Krishna as an ordinary person, or they mostly think that it's just a myth. So those, he says, they're mudas, they're fools. Now Prabhupada invokes various shastra here. He quotes the Upanishads. Why do we find these quotes here? You will find in the 10th chapter even a whole purport that's one after another quotes of the Upanishads. Because in this commentary is based on Baladev Vidyabhushan's commentary. There's a reason he's called Vidyabhushan, decorated with knowledge. You get that, it's given to you. It's not that you're born with it, it's that you're given to you. It's just like PhD, because he was vastly learned in the Shastra. He was a disciple of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And Prabhupada consulted mostly his commentary in preparing his own commentary. And he's quoting again and again here, Gopal Tapani Upanishad. The fact that it is an Upanishad, in certain circles in India, people who know, they accept the Upanishads as authoritative. And this Gopal Tapani is one of the few Upanishads that speak of God as a person, and as Gopal, as Krishna. Prabhupada chose to give us the Isha Upanishad, because that also, Isha means the Supreme Lord. It's short for Ishvara. So he's quoting here so many quotes from this one Upanishad, proving the speciality of the form of Krishna. That it is eternal, although it's in a human form, acting like a man, acting like a human being. He's not a human being. He's infinite, infinitely powerful. So that's what's going on here. Prabhupada lays into the so-called Gita scholars who deride Krishna as an ordinary man or as a mythical figure, or as a composite. He's a figure that was used somewhere in the 6th century A.D., where certain Vedic scholars got together and wrote this Bhagavad Gita, wrote the Mahabharata. They don't accept our whole line, Vyasadeva and all these things. So what we get from Srila Prabhupada's book, now reading this, is that, the fact that he says they deride him as an ordinary human being, it means that Srila Prabhupada's understanding, he's realized that Krishna is real, that he may have a wonderful, beautiful form as the most attractive human-like form, but that he is the Parameshwar, he's the Supreme Brahman. This is all part of his realization. And he's also channeling, if you will, our whole parampara. If you don't believe this, that means that, what do you think? What is your conclusion? The implication of that? If you read the book and you think, oh, it's just a lot of myth. Well, that means that you're thinking, saying that Srila Prabhupada didn't know really what he was talking about, nor Bhaktisiddhanta, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Ramanuja, all the way back, Lord Chaitanya was just a sentimentalist. You see the problem with that? So the fact that you read this purport that we just read, and there's no doubt there, Prabhupada is giving us what's directly in his heart, what he has seen. Just like someone came back from a foreign country you've never been to, and describing a city you've never been to, But he's been there. He doesn't have any reason to lie, and so you believe it, and you say, yes, this is the reality. And if you're interested, you go there also. So Srila Prabhupada is coming from the spiritual world. And by his purity and his nature, he's giving us, as a transparent medium, this reality of this. And if we accept it, then we can proceed on the foundation of faith with our practice of devotional service, and that in the faith that one day we will also have these same experiences. That's what this is all about. It's not just, you know, we have to be careful. Prabhupada is railing here because he knows there are so many speakers of Bhagavad Gita, there's so many courses of Bhagavad Gita, where people don't really believe in the Bhagavad Gita. It is just a course in Hindu religion or something. You know, it's one department of studies, you know, religious studies. But it's not something you're approaching as a life-changing experience. This is why Srila Prabhupada's books are so revolutionary. He's not asking you to just be interested in this. He's asking you to take it as reality and change your life. So here, you know, Krishna himself is saying that people who don't accept my divinity and think I'm an ordinary human being are fools and rascals. And they're dangerous because they can undercut the faith of the faithful. This is what's going on here. Okay. So then he said, if we consult the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative text for understanding the science of Krishna, we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right there you have the essence of the whole thing. If we are willing to consult them, remember I'll go back again to the end of chapter 16. You know, Krishna lays into the demons there in chapter 16 and he says they go down, down, I cast them down into a hellish existence. They declare that I don't exist. And they endanger everyone else who comes in contact with them. This is the problem. They create havoc in the world and they're forces of evil. They're still living entities, but they need to be punished more. So then he says that there are these lust, anger, and greed, which you must surrender to. If you don't surrender to Krishna and this knowledge and the process of devotional service, then you're going to be controlled by the modes of nature. And that means to one degree or another, lust, anger, and greed are going to hold you and you're going to act on them. And he says, these are the gates leading to that hell I just described. You know, those who have escaped these gates by the process of self-control and yoga, they act for their own best interest. Etava mukta kondaya tamo dwarais. This is the doors to darkness. Tamo dwarais tribir naraha, the human being. Achadatyatma nakshayas. They act for the benefit of the soul, the ultimate benefit of the real self. And ultimately they go to the supreme goal. Tato yati parangatim. On the other hand, those who reject, and now he introduces the idea of Shastra. Shastra is nothing but the words of Krishna and those who speak for Krishna. That's the key. Those who reject the injunctions of Shastra and act according to their whims, they don't get perfection, don't get happiness, they don't go to the supreme goal, and therefore consult Shastra, consult revealed scripture, to really determine what to do and what not to do. And having consulted and you understand, then actually act according to that as a matter of duty. So that's the authority. It all goes down to back to Shastra. We have commonly said there's 3 pillars of knowledge upon which we base our activities. Shastra, Guru, and Sadhu. And the latter 2 simply reflect the truths in the first. The definition of a real guru or acharya. Now what is that acharya? It's based on this word achar, which means behavior. So the acharya, he knows the Shastra, lives by the rules, and he takes the trouble to teach. He or she takes the trouble to teach. That's an acharya. So there's really no difference. One is said to be a guru or a sadhu who is living according to Shastra and who can impart Shastra with some authority. So that's what Srila Prabhupada is saying. If we consult Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, authoritative texts on the science of Krishna, we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. He's not ordinary. Okay, so you know it's difficult because he's simultaneously infinite and infinitesimal. He's simultaneously all powerful, as we'll see in chapter 11. The universal form. With thousands and millions of mouths, he's devouring the whole universe. It's very frightening to Arjuna. So that's one form of his. And he's also this little child being bound up by his mother's shoulder. Now that's inconceivable. That's like the Upanishad, Upanipado Javana. He has no hands or legs, but he can beat everyone running, and he can grab anything from anywhere. So this is Krishna. He unites all of these mutually exclusive factors. But ultimately, he reveals himself to us in just the way that we approach him. As they surrender, as anyone surrenders to me, I reward them, reciprocate proportionally, or just suitably. Now you say, so how are the atheists surrendered unto you? You know, what do they do? Well, as I mentioned last night, I think it was, they're worshiping the material energy. They're absorbed in the material. That's nothing but Krishna's energy. They don't know that, but so they get reciprocation on the material plane, but it can't satisfy them. And ultimately, that they become controlled by the material energy. They're under the sway of the illusory energy of Krishna. Inevitably, the modes of nature. That's what you're focused on. That's what you're worshiping. That's what you're hoping to glean. I was just reading how, you hear about this climate change, and it's like, it's kind of happening a little faster than we had thought. All of these extreme weather things that are going on. But aside from that, there is a tremendous evidence of all of these pollutants. The Pacific Ocean is full of plastic. There's big sections of it, like the size of Texas. All the plastic we've been throwing in these things all the time. It makes its way to the ocean, gets ground up into little pieces, and floats. And the fish eat it, and they get poisoned. And the whole thing is we're messing up the ecology, human beings. Now, what is that? Let's think of it in terms of, look at it from a Krishna conscious perspective. Well, you have, let's call it what it is, a capitalist system, which is based on accumulation of wealth, investment, exploitation of nature, and exploitation of other human beings to create a profit, which you can then invest and increase. So it's just growth. It's something like a cancer, right? It's all based on lust, anger, and greed. I mean, who can imagine, someone with $1 billion, $10 billion, $50 billion, the Apple, I remember when Macintosh computers came out, you remember in the early 90s, the little thing. They were always like, oh yeah, we're the computers for the other people, we're not this big IBM. You remember that? I don't know if you remember that. And so it was like, oh yeah, computers for everybody, you can all use. But now if you keep building it up, and then the phones, the iPhones, I got my iPad here and everything. Well, what happens with that? You have a company that's almost worth $1 trillion. It's inconceivable. I mean, who can imagine that? What do they do with it all? They just stash it. They don't know what to do with it. They stash like $180 billion abroad, so they don't have to pay taxes. It's all greed. Isn't it enough to have 1 billion, 10 billion, 100? There's no limit, you see. But what is the result of all that? Is that you have millions of people in China working for $2 a day, and that means all the people in America who need $10, $50, $100 a day getting, they're out on the street. You have West Coast here. I read that the homeless is getting worse and worse. They have big encampments. These people are working, but they can't afford to live anywhere. In other words, the whole thing becomes distorted. It's unnatural. And the result is you're poisoning the environment, not only the physical environment, the ether, the sound vibration. This is the result. In other words, down the hole, the demonic hole mentioned in the 16th chapter. And so what is the solution? You have to escape those 3 gates. You have to find a way in your own life to live simply and as purely as possible, and to learn to take your pleasure from within. In other words, Krishna consciousness. Right, the 5th chapter, these wonderful verses. Yehi sangsparjita bhoga dukkha yona evate. That this pleasure you're enjoying, whether it's the grossest pleasure or the most refined emotional pleasure, art, all of that, that is the source of your unhappiness. Krishna says. Okay, so where am I going to find happiness? He says, Bhayasparsheshu asaktatma, being relieved of this, attachment to the external pleasures. Bhayasparsheshu asaktatma vindityatmani yatsukam, learning to enjoy the pleasure within. The reservoir of pleasure is there, Krishna. You can contact him by the process of bhakti yoga. Sabrahma yoga yuktatma, linking your soul to the Supreme Brahman, Krishna, by the process of bhakti yoga. Sukhamakshayam ashnate. One enjoys unbreakable, ever-increasing happiness on the spiritual plane. It's not dependent on exploiting this material energy. You live very simply. That's the only answer. That's the solution. But who knows what's going to happen in this world before people understand it. So, Krishna is calling them mudhas, those who don't recognize him as the Supreme. This is their problem. And then he analyzes what happens. What's the verdict? The next verse goes with the previous verse. Text number 12. Moghasha moga karmano moga jnana vichetasaha raksasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Purport: there are many devotees who assume themselves, and Prabhupada takes a different track here, this is a pretty revolutionary purport. There are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tasted. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruitive pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from this material entanglement will never be successful either, because they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, persons who mock Krishna are to be understood to be demonic or atheistic. As described in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, such demonic miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their mental speculations to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of delusion. Such atheistic and demoniac cultivation of spiritual knowledge is always futile. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of the knowledge in the Vedic literature, like the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads, is always baffled. It is a great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who do so are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the eternal form of Krishna. The Brihad Vishnu Smriti clearly states, Yo veti bhautikam deham krishnasya padamatmanaha sasarvasmad bahishkarya shrauta smarta vidhanataha mukum tasyavalokyapi sachelam snanamacharet. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and the Smriti. And if one by chance sees his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the species of atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation. Oh, pretty heavy. Yeah. Prabhupada cites also from the 7th chapter here. Namam dushkrita no mudha papadyante nararama mahi apurita jnana asuram bhavamashita. So, here he says, those who don't surrender to me, namam dushkrita mudha papadyante, those who don't surrender to me, they're dushkritina. There's like 4 categories, but they're not mutually exclusive. Dushkritina means, Prabhupada explains, they may be very intelligent, materially, very beautiful, very wealthy, you see. But whatever they have is used for atheistic purposes. This is called dushkritina. Prabhupada gives the example of building the atom bomb or something, you know. Fixed a lot of, remember Oppenheimer, that whole thing? You know, Manhattan Project, you know. A lot of resources, intellectual, monetary, were brought to bear, and that's called kritinaha. In other words, that's, extraordinary. But it's used for evil purposes, so it's dushkritina. Then another class, and again, they're not mutually exclusive. The mudhas. The mudhas are just like, you know, what do they call them? Like the knuckle draggers, like the Neanderthal. You know, people who just don't know anything, never went past 4th grade, you know. And they just don't, and they're proud of it. Right? And anyway, that's the mudhas. They don't want to know anything. Then the radama, that's the lowest of mankind. That, you know, obviously the mudhas and the radamas, there's an overlap there. And then the out-and-out atheists, asuram bhavamashita, and those whose knowledge has been stolen by illusion. They may be professors or this and that, but, you know, but it's completely materialistic knowledge. It just keeps them bound here. So these are the people who don't surrender to Krishna. And this is the same thing is being said here. Those who deride Krishna, moghasha, all of their aspirations are frustrated. Mogha karmano, their activities come to naught eventually. Mogha jnana, their attempts for knowledge are also frustrated. This is all in the first line of this verse. Vichetasaha, they are bewildered. And then Rakshasim Asurimcha, they are of the nature of cannibals and demons. Because they're not missing any words. Prakati Mohan. And the essential reason is they've taken shelter of the bewildering energy, of the material energy. And in the next verse he describes the contrast. Devotees, the saints, the Mahatmas, who take shelter of the Daivi Prakriti, the divine energy. This is our choice. What energy we're going to take shelter of or be influenced by. The divine or the demonic. And knowing you know, the results of both, we should choose the divine, which means to surrender to Krishna. Okay, shall we read more about the rasa dance? We should end with something sweet. What could be sweeter than the rasa dance?
And you've got a poem.
Huh?
Poem is just a
Oh,
poem.
a poem. Okay. So remind me before you get there. Yes. Every day we should have a poem. Especially when we're reading these heavy verses we do. Okay. Krishna book. Nothing could be sweeter. All right, we're still in the introduction. In the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter. Hold on a second. 18th chapter, the Lord states that one who is engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness is very dear to him. A preacher has to face many difficulties in his struggle to preach pure Krishna consciousness. Sometimes he has to suffer bodily injuries, and sometimes he has to meet death also. All this is taken as a great austerity on behalf of Krishna. Krishna therefore has said that such a preacher is very, very dear to him. If Krishna's enemies can expect salvation simply by concentrating their minds on him, then what to speak of persons who are so dear to Krishna? The conclusion should be that the salvation of those who are engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness in the world is guaranteed in all circumstances. But such preachers never care for salvation, because factually one who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, has already achieved salvation. Shukadeva Goswami therefore assured King Parikshit that he should always rest assured that one who is attracted by Krishna attains liberation from material bondage, because Krishna is the transcendental master of all mystic power. When all the gopis assembled, as described, before Krishna, he began to speak to them, welcoming them as well as discouraging them by word jugglery. Krishna is the supreme speaker. He is the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. He can speak on the highest elevated subjects of philosophy, politics, economics, everything. And he also spoke before the gopis who were so dear to him. He wanted to enchant them by word jugglery, and thus he began to speak as follows. O ladies of Vrindavan, Krishna said, you're very fortunate and you're very dear to me. I'm very much pleased that you have come here, and I hope everything is well in Vrindavan. Now please order me. What can I do for you? What is the purpose of your coming here in the dead of night? Kindly take your seats and let me know what I can do for you. The gopis had come to Krishna to enjoy his company, to dance with him, embrace him, and kiss him. And when Krishna began to receive them very officially, showing all kinds of etiquette, they were surprised. He was treating them like ordinary society women. Therefore they began to smile among themselves. And though they very eagerly listened to Krishna talk in that way, they were surprised. Then Krishna began to instruct them. My dear friends, you must know that it is now the dead of night, and the forest is very dangerous. At this time, all the ferocious jungle animals, the tigers, the bears, the jackals, and the wolves are prowling in the forest. Therefore, it's very dangerous for you. You can't select a secure place now. Everywhere you go, you'll find that all these animals are loitering to find their prey. I therefore think that you are taking a great risk in coming here in the dead of night. Please turn back immediately without delay. When he saw that they continued to smile, he said, I very much appreciate your bodily features. All of you have nice, very thin waists. All of the gopis were exquisitely beautiful. They are described by the words sumadhyama. The standard of beauty of a woman is said to be sumadhyama when the middle portion of the body is slender. Krishna wanted to impress on them that they were not old enough to take care of themselves. Actually, they required protection. It was not very wise for them to come in the dead of night to Krishna. Krishna also indicated that he was young and that they were young girls. It does not look very well for young girls and boys to remain together in the dead of night. After hearing this advice, the gopis did not seem very happy, so they stopped smiling. Therefore, Krishna began to stress the point in a different way. My dear friends, I can understand that you've left your homes without the permission of your guardians. Therefore, I think your mothers, your fathers, your elder brothers, and even your sons, and what to speak of your husbands, must be very anxious to find you. As long as you're here, they must be searching in different places, and their minds must be very agitated. So don't tarry. Please go back and make them peaceful. When the gopis appeared to be a little disturbed and angry from hearing the free advice of Krishna, they diverted their attention to looking at the beauty of the forest. At that time, the whole forest was illuminated by the bright shining of the moon. Now you have to understand, Prabhupada is putting in here some of his own realizations. The whole thing about, anyway, about their looking, I don't remember that being in the original text, but they're looking around. At that time, the whole forest was illuminated by the bright shining of the moon, and the air was blowing very silently over the blooming flowers, and the green leaves of the trees were moving in the breeze. Krishna took the opportunity of their looking at the forest to advise them. I think you've come out here to see the beautiful Vrindavan forest on this night. But you must now be satisfied. So return to your homes without delay. I understand that you are all very chaste women, so now that you have seen the beautiful atmosphere of the Vrindavan forest, please return home and engage in the faithful service of your respective husbands. Some of you must have babies by this time, although you are very young. You must have left your small babies at home, and they must be crying. Please immediately go back home and just feed them with your breast milk. I can understand that you have very great affection for me, and out of that transcendental affection, you have come here hearing my playing on the flute. Your feelings of love and affection for me are very appropriate, because I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All living creatures are my parts and parcels, and naturally they are affectionate to me. So this affection for me is very welcome, and I congratulate you for this. Now you can go back to your homes. Another thing I must explain to you is that for a chaste woman, service to the husband without duplicity is the best religious principle. Not only should a woman be faithful and chaste to her husband, but she should also be affectionate to the friends of her husband, obedient to the father and mother of her husband, and affectionate to the younger brothers of her husband. And most importantly, a woman must take care of her children. So I'm going to stop there and leave time for my little poem. And that poem deals with all of that, what you just heard. But forgive me, I don't have it memorized, so I'm going to have to look it up. And then, sanity. Okay, where is this? Yeah, okay. Okay, there we go. Okay. So, this is a little introduction. This is a little verse by Bilvamangal Thakur. And it was sung by Prabhupada's beloved godbrother, Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji, during Kirtan. He would sometimes sing this verse. And it has to do with Krishna cheating the girls. Anchata pichachudam vanchata saujannivalali valayam adadamaninihitta venam balam gopalanamishamabalambe. He's placed his flute to his ruby lips, a peacock plume on his curls. That cowherd boy, my eternal shelter, cheats all the virtuous girls. That's it. Okay, since you wanted more, let me give you more. Now, there's several like that in that mood in which Krishna is speaking about a little baby Krishna. Kinkini kinkina da basaram guna buvarinkina sadatam tam. Kunkuna kunkuna padiyukalam kankana kadabushalam hadim bande. You can hear the sound effects. I bow to Hari, whose waist bells tinkle as he crawls in his father's yard. His bangles and ankle bells softly jingle as he melts Vrindavan's heart. One more. Somebody so the bina maya sayantamunuyantim, dambala kamabadambe tambalam tunabalagna jambala. Which means, his mother grows tired while chasing her son as he runs among the cows. I ever take shelter of Nanda's boy who's muddy from the pasture's ground. And on that note, religion. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now let us quickly put everything away so we can have the arti. Somebody should be.
Marcy, Marcy, do you want a piece of cake? Pardon? Do you want a piece of cake? Cake?
When is our walk?
In a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks. Very creative. We'll see one of our swamis. Vaishnava ki jai, Dhamacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai, Perfect Gauri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasani Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shankar Radhakul Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Ganga Mehi ki jai, Yamuna Mehi ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Bhakti Distribution ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Samadendra Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Guru and Raka. Namaste.
so few people who have you called the same person who's bringing shot.
Oh, God.
No, well, you can go back.
It's so busy. I forgot to go to China. Sorry, you're in a hurry. No, do you want to just get a prasadam? I'll pick it up on Sunday. Let me pick it up on Sunday. Oh, oh, so sweet. Okay. These two books, then in total they're 10, right? Let's do 10, 10, 10, 10.
Okay.
So I just feel right. So we get the numbers right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Suresh,
Yes.
come on, you're our best customer tonight. I'm not even going to ask Tina if she wants any, because I know the answer. Maybe nobody wants some. Yeah. Which flavor do you like? Fancy one?
Yes.
All right, tell me when. It's all for you if you want it. You can sleep for 2 days. One or two.
One.
How about